Hey guys, this is Colin from Blackjack Apprenticeship, and I'm joined by Joe748 and our special guest, Dane. How you doing, Dane?
I'm good, thank you. And thank you for having me and inviting me.
Yeah, thanks for being willing to share some of the art and the experiences of your side of those domes.
No, I wanted to see you guys too. When you reached out, I'm like, I got to see these guys again.
Yeah,
it's nice seeing you guys again.
Yeah, likewise. It's been quite a while.
Yeah.
But what can you share as far as your background in surveillance?
So, just a little background. I started early 2000s. So it's a little over 2 decades now that I've been doing this line of work. But I was young. I think I was 23 years old when the first time I started in Vegas. Coming into surveillance, it was hard. You got to have experience. And for a young guy like me, they're looking at my resume with no experience, so it's really hard to get in. But once you get in, it's easier to transfer from property to property after that. And I remember back in the day when I was the new guy in the room, I was always the young guy. You know what I mean? And I was learning from all these older surveillance guys. I call them old schools. But that was back when VCRs and tapes were still in effect, basically. Now it's all digital. So it's come a long way.
Yeah, I'll bet a lot has changed over. And, it's funny because you got into surveillance right at the same time I got into card counting. And I've got to see that change over the last 20 years, but, still viable. People are still impressing me with what they're doing with card counting and advantage play. And then I'm sure you've got to see a lot.
Oh, for sure. Like you said, when you first started, you guys were everywhere, and I was just the new guy trying to learn and catch up with you guys. I was like, wow, these guys are like all over the place, man. They're like really hitting Vegas hard. And in my head, where are these guys coming from? Because usually the teams that I was taught were the older generation teams. I'm not going to mention their teams, but you know what I'm talking about. You guys were like the young guys too in the card counting world then.
What are the biggest things that stand out to you as far as just from the surveillance side that has changed? I was just thinking about this. You said you kind of learned from the old school guys. What were things that they did or ways that they thought that stick out to you compared to now?
So the way I describe my experience is I came in back in the analog days, right? So that there was tape change and all that. And that tape change could last 2 to 4 hours. And guess who they're going to put in that tape change? The new guy or the young guy, right? But they were very into a lot of cheating stuff and AP stuff, mostly card counting. My experience when I came in is basically what I describe my experience is I started in the analog days, and as time went on, it was the transition from analog to digital. So yes, I learned from the old school, but then I also had to learn the new school, which is the digital technology.
And you put a lot of effort into understanding advantage play. You learned and you became aware of the various AP plays, but even like familiarizing yourself with the people that were real active.
Yes, so it was my exposure that gave me the experience as far as surveillance and advantage play. I was taught how to catch card counters, so I had to learn how to count cards. But I was taught not to make money, but how to catch them and identify them. And over the years, that's how I also was exposed to other AP methods, and particularly whole card play. That was fun. So my first experience with whole card play, I was doing the evaluation on the player. And this guy had such bad basic strategy. I'm telling you, it was so bad. But then I was like, there's no way he's counting because first, he's not moving with the count. And there's so many errors. And I'm like, man, this guy's not doing anything. But he beat us. He beat us for like 5 figures, right? And then that's how I learned. Somebody told me, hey, that guy is so-and-so. That's how I learned about so-and-so, right? He's already well known. But that alone was enough to look into more of the play and look outside of counting And that's when we figured out that play was a whole card. And that was such a experience for me, not just to focus on card counting, but there's other ways to beat the casino with other methods.
What was it about you versus other surveillance agents do you think that excited you about AP? Because you've written 2 books about it. You seem like you love AP.
Yeah.
So it's like, why? What's different?
um, so again, I was young and I was gung ho. I was one of those guys I had to prove something to these old school guys, right? So I wanted to gain more knowledge outside of work, and I did that on my own time. I went to Gamblers Book Club, and back in the day, Gamblers Book Club was in Charleston before they moved over to Eastern, and I was choosing books. I think I was buying books every at least couple of weeks, and I would read these books, and there's so much information, and I was overwhelmed because there's like words in there that I don't understand. All I know is high, low, +1, -1. That's all I know. Running count, follow. If the bet's moving up, the bet's moving down. That's as far as I knew about it. But as I learned, I wanted to know, well, how does it really work on the player side? So that's when I started to venture out and do it on my own. When I was learning, once I was going out, it just, I was working graveyard. After work, I'd go out, put in a couple hours. I had so much fun that I actually kept track of records, not just to go and play, but I actually made my own records. But that's how I got started with card counting.
And what made you want to write Behind the Black Dome?
I think I was telling somebody this before. I literally just, one day I was bored. I just started typing away. And as soon as that first page came, the second page came. Next thing you know, there's 200 pages.
Wow.
Yeah. But that's 10 years after I started. So when I released my first one, it was back in 2012. I was already 10 years in. I remember you telling me that it's only once every 10 years that somebody releases a book about casino surveillance. The first one being was Cellini, right? And then mine came out. And then after pandemic, I'm like, I gotta put out another one. It's been over 10 years now, so there goes another one.
What was the main motivation? Just because it's been 10 years or
No, it was pandemic one. And then I was looking at my book, and the words that I was using over there was back in the day. I was mentioning MP3 players, tape chains, VCRs, right? So it was either I update my first one, which could be messy. So I decided, well, I'll just start a new one. And then basically, the first one I targeted APs. The second one, I noticed online that there's been people interested in the job itself. Not much of the AP side, but the job. What does the casino surveillance do? How much they make, right? And I wanted to release a book that would cater to someone who doesn't know anything about surveillance but want to get into surveillance, but at the same time include AP because that's where I started with my first book, at least.
And how's the response been?
It's been great. I actually, when I released the second book, I didn't really market it. I just put it out there. It's been good.
Have you gotten any kind of flack from industry people about making these books?
Yeah, the first time for sure, but second one not really because it's more normal now. Back in the day it was more taboo. Now it's just there's so much information out there now. I mean, you can Google it and you'll see all kinds of surveillance pictures. Back in the day, you don't even see that. You only watch it over Discovery Channel or something, or some special in the cable. You know what I mean? But now it's just easily searchable.
Other than the move from analog to digital, have there been any big changes in surveillance in the last decade?
Yeah. Big part of that is the FR, or facial recognition. Back in the day, it was, so and so. I wasn't impressed at all. I was like, man, it's no good. Basically, I'm just being nice there. But as when I came back again in surveillance, when I saw the new system and how it's integrated with high definition cameras and placement of cameras, and it's a lot better now. It's actually pretty spot on. It's not perfect. It still needs to be adjusted a little bit, but with time, everything just gets better with technology. So it's only going to get better.
And are you seeing this across the board at all casinos or just the high-end places?
My experience, just high end places. The smaller properties, they're not going to invest with FR. Really no need to if it's a smaller property. But the high end property, the larger resorts, for sure, they're going to have FR.
So every AP listening to this is panicking right now, thinking like, "Oh no, my career's over." What would be your thoughts or advice?
Well, if you walk in, you just automatically assume that the FR will be catching you because these FRs are placed in entrances. We call it choke points, basically. It's where major traffic is going, and then the cameras actually focus to scan faces and stuff like that. So if you just think about it, if you were to park in a parking garage and then you walk in that little hallway leading towards the casino, you'd expect there's going to be an FR camera there. So whether you put your face down or you scrumple your face a little bit, that might work. But for the most part, it might catch you too. And that's only if you're enrolled in the system. It's not automatic. Oh yeah, Colin is automatically enrolled. No, it's not like that. We have to actually, that property needs to input you for them to scan it. There's no database.
The national.
Exactly. It's property wise. Every property has their own FR, and that FR has its own database. The one thing about FR that I noticed too is they scan faces on shirts.
Oh yeah.
So that's a good tip there. You know, if you're walking, you want to wear like I don't know, a t-shirt with a face on it or tie-dye. It messes up the FR.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty cool actually. When I see it, I'm like, oh, look, it's scanning the t-shirt instead of the face.
Wow.
And this is like high-end, probably Vegas type places that have this live view facial recognition that's actively scanning everyone.
It scans thousands of faces every day, and you might get a hit for, I don't know, 10 to 20 out of those 1,000 faces. It's not all AP. Some properties don't even have AP on their FR, but it's mostly patrons who were 86, undesirables, cheats, wanted individuals by law enforcement, and APs. Just a bunch of people inside that system.
I hear this, but I also have tried playing on the strip in the last year at high-end places with a hat and gotten time in without a back off. You know, I'm not saying like 8 hours, but you know, an hour or so here or there.
Yeah.
Obviously, I haven't tried every property, and there's certain ones I might avoid, but maybe there'll be a time where I walk into a casino and I just can't play, but I don't think I'll believe it when I see it.
No, I actually have not seen anything recent from you. So I'm like, oh, I don't know. This guy retired already or what?
Yeah, I'm mostly retired.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But yeah, you can still get away with playing time. I mean, like I said, every day the daily duties of a surveillance room. There's so much into the work that goes beyond AP. Like we have investigations to do, reports to do, procedure errors, or customer claims that we have to settle with the patron with. So it's not just, you know, when you say casino surveillance, it's not just about AP. Number one thing is looking for cheats and theft, you know, internal, external theft. But AP is a big part of it. You know what I mean? And catching one is actually pretty good for the department because we're putting that stats up there like, hey, you know, we're catching these errors from the dealers. We're also catching AP. So it's a good thing. We can show that we are a productive department.
Yeah. Over the last 2 decades, would you say that there's been an increase or decrease in focus on card counting, or neither, just stayed the same?
There's been an increase in looking for card counters. Yeah, I can say that because of FR, mostly FR. There's a generational shift now as far as card counters, you know. I don't see much of the older generation. I see more of the younger generation playing now. They're a lot aggressive, you know what I mean? But there's these new faces that I see that are very well active and traveling all over the place. And next thing you know, they'll be in Vegas for, they get backed out, they get fired. We still do that, right? And there's still that focus on these players. Like I think majority of it were coming from your side.
I do what I can.
Speaking of cheating, has there been any crazy new cheating scandals you've seen recently in the past couple of years where it's just like, whoa, this is...
So majority of the cheating that we see on a it's not even on a daily basis, more like once every couple of months, right? It's just the most basic cheating move. It's more of the people that are taking their shot, adding to their bets, or taking off from their bets. It's not the basically what you see in the movies where it's all organized and cameras here, and they happen. Those cameras and organized group with big bankroll, cheating wise, yeah, it has happened. Actually, it happened in the last decade or so. But yeah, they're out there. But majority of the cheating that we deal with are just the average pass posting, which is like I said, putting out there your bet after the outcome's been determined. And if you do that, yeah, that's against the law. It's cheating. You'll go to jail for that, regardless if it's $5 or $100 or 5,000.
Yeah, sometimes it's amazing the small amount of money that people are going to like
jail for. Yeah.
Well, it's like, what are you doing? You know?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
What about the license plate readers? That's one that can be frustrating. How often are casinos using them, and is it kind of like the FR where someone has to be input for them to be able to associate a license plate with that person?
Yes. So same thing as FR, the LPR system is it's property per property and their own database. So they have to input your license plate for it. And again, that's not just for APs. It's more like helping out Metro if they need somebody. Because what happens on the strip is that people rent cars. So a lot of those license plate would come back, and next thing you know, that person that you're waiting for is actually somebody else, and you're like, that's not that guy. And then we end up taking it off the LPR system. So we don't really use the LPR that much. It's more on the security side. AP, yes, we can, but we don't focus on that. We let FR do the work.
How often are you identifying an advantage player because you're like looking them up in a database versus just saying, oh, I see their bets moving, let's do a skill check?
It sounds like you're asking about being proactive in identifying APs, right? So the good news with the FR is a lot of the rooms rely on FR too much. They tend to just wait until it hits instead of actively looking at tables. So what happens if the FR doesn't catch it? Like you said, you were able to play. So that means the FR didn't catch you. And then you ended up playing, right? Surveillance rooms still need to proactively scan the pit, especially the pits that are 3-2. Yes, we do scan 6-5 also because there's other methods that you can employ on that. But for the most part, surveillance needs to be proactive in scanning the pits and not just rely solely on FR. So what happened? When FR became better, the rooms tend to be relaxed. You know what I mean? That's the bad part about FR.
How widely are surveillance operators using things like BJ survey?
That depends on the property. So other properties, they have like a limit on when they do the survey. Most properties would run a survey if the player is winning. There's really no use to run a survey if the player is losing. But on a winning player, especially the hit sheet, have you guys heard of a hit sheet? Hit sheet's basically who won for the day. And different properties from small to larger properties will have their own threshold, whether if it's $1,000 all the way to 50. Your name, if you won 50K, you'll be up there. Surveillance has to have something on that player to say, well, what happened here? Even though there's nothing to the play, it could be just a high action player that won 50K. You still have to have something on file for this player, whether it's a manual evaluation or a BJ survey. The use of a BJ survey, though, I know some properties tend to wait for 3 surveys for, let's say, 3 positive surveys, right? Positive meaning they are positive with advantage play. So some properties do wait until you reach that 3 before they even take action on you. And some properties do 1 and take action on you. It just depends.
Interesting. And the $1,000 threshold, that can't be very, very many casinos that have just 1,000. They'd have a.
I've seen 500.
Oh no! They got a foul on everybody in the casino.
Oh yeah, I've seen 500, and these are just like the small, local joint.
Yeah, I mean maybe at slots of fun or something, but not at like a Caesars or a MGM. I would think.
And the good news about that hit sheet is not all rooms look at that because not all rooms pay attention to that.
Oh, interesting. So they might have it, but they might not even look at it.
Yes, with my experience though, at least I pay attention.
Well, you're cut above the average.
How long does it take to complete a survey?
It's probably not going to make sense if I tell you this, because when we run survey, we just need to run a couple of shuffles. At least there's properties that would just say, hey, just do 100 rounds and we'll see where they're at, right? But we don't do thousands of hands. Why would we? Because who knows? You're not going to come back. If you play today, you're probably not going to come back. You will put in the hours in your hands in other casinos, but we don't have that luxury of waiting for you to see if you're a winning player, right? So we just have to see if you are there based on the shuffles that we're going to input. And once we input those numbers in, survey will tell us whether you're positive with advantage play, whether that's card counting or whole card play or tracking. It actually shows tracking also.
I'm sure every property is different, but what's like the threshold? Let's say it's a high limit room in Vegas and someone's on a really good game and they're doing like a really, really tight spread, but it's still positive EV. What is enough of is it like an hourly rate that it's too much, or is it just whether or not a player is positive regardless? Like what if he's doing a 1-3 spread and it happens to be positive enough?
No, that's a good question. So what they're looking for with these surveys is, the word they're looking for is casino disadvantage. And that means the player shifted the house edge to themselves, right? That's when it says this player's casino disadvantage is, minus 0.20, right? If it says casino advantage, that means the edge is still on the house and this player is still, that will become a negative survey. I mean, the survey can still see that you're moving with the count, right? But it's not enough to overcome that edge. Therefore, some properties take action in that, but other properties don't. And I'll give you an example. This guy was playing, I think his spread was 200 to 2,000, I think. But he does some wild moves and wild swings. He's count aware. Count aware is, this guy is counting, but then he'll throw off some moves there that you're like, what the hell is that? But for the most part, he does know what he's doing. So whether he's a new player or just somebody who's doing camouflage, right? So we ran the survey, and then it came back as casino advantage, 0.01 on a 0.26 game. So you're literally like, he's right there. However, we still have the edge, right? But if you factor in all the comps that he's doing, all the freebies that he gets, he's probably going to take that 0.1 away. But his hourly rate at that time, too, was $5 per hour. Even with that spread, I'm not even understanding it. It was like, I don't know how the BJ survey came up with that. But those are the things that we look at and that we present to table games and say, hey, this guy does know what he's doing. However, we still have this house advantage. And then this is his hourly rate per survey. So, yes, he is counting, but no, he didn't get back to us.
Okay, interesting. That's
he ended up losing 5 digits there. It's pretty.
Yeah.
With that spread, what I mean? He was up there.
Oh yeah, it just takes a couple hands.
Yeah, and he probably walked away thinking, because he's on database too. He's database enrolled, so that means action has been taken on him before. Yeah. So when he walked away from the game, he's probably thinking, because he was doing a marathon. He was like literally there for like 6 hours, 8 hours. Right. But He was probably wondering why he didn't get backed off. And that's exactly why. Because we do care what we see and not just take action right away. But there are properties that are aggressive.
Yep.
Little movement, one shuffle, you're out, and other properties will wait it out.
On average, what kind of a spread do surveillance operators look for in blackjack to bother or to take notice?
I think a 1-4 spread. Yeah. A 1-4 spread in a double deck game.
Okay, yeah.
And it may be a 1-6, 1-8 on a 6 deck.
Hurts my heart.
I mean, yeah, that might be enough for them to take note. I mean,
well, the thing is, you could be moving to your spread of 1-8, right? Or let's say 6. You were moving your spread to 1-6. We don't have the luxury to wait for you to see your actual spread. As soon as we recognize that you're doing this, hey, we can bounce that player, because what if the count does come and then next thing you know, they're putting out max on 2 hands?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, you are doing $100 to $600. And then if we wait, right, it might cost the casino.
What about games other than traditional blackjack? Same thing?
We do take a look at these. I don't even know what's out there now. There used to be Super Fun 21.
Yeah,
Spanish 21.
Yeah,
I don't see much of those games anymore.
Yeah.
But there's the free bet that we still pay attention to.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah.
Just there's probably a lot of newer players listening. How much would someone have to tip for table games management to be like, oh yeah, the guy's counting, he has an edge, but he's tipping too much, let's not back him off?
Table games wise, they're not gonna consider you tipping. They might mention it, but table games, yeah, they are aware about card counting, but majority of the table games now is more for customer service. Back in the day, it was more floor supervisor, pit managers. They're more centered into cheating and AP. But now it's the shift in workforce. It's geared towards customer service. And with that, they don't really take into account how much whether the player's tipping or if the player's drinking, they don't take that into account. What they do take into account is the spread. So if you're spreading from minimum to next thing you know, there's $1,000, yeah, surveillance for sure going to get a call on that. And then if we get the call, we'll place the camera in there, but we don't assume or automatically back off somebody just because they have a spread. We still have to look at the play, and we have to look at other factors too. Like you said, tipping, how much are they tipping? Or drinking. We always look at the drinking too. I could literally just look at the monitor, and with one look, I could eliminate who I want to watch or I don't want to watch. Eliminate those people and focus on the ones that are person of interest. And what I mean by that, if I had the full table, right, and you got a bunch of minimum bets, and then you got one guy that got 2 spots at 600, that's a flag for me. I'll focus on that 600 times 2 versus minimum bets. But if I see 600 times 2 and you got black checks as a toke on 2 spots, I might skip you too, because I'll move on to the next person. So it just depends on what's happening on the game.
So it's situational, but are you basically saying you'd have to tip so much to the point where...
I mean, 2 black chips on a hand that, maybe the EV is $10.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? If I may add, the survey, we don't input tokes on the survey. So the survey doesn't even realize what you're tipping. We're only doing the bets.
Yeah. Are there any cover moves that you think move the needle at all that wouldn't just kill a card counter's edge? Any cover plays
that actually work?
A big flag for me, in my experience and what I see, are the people that are very comfortable with soft 18. If you're very comfortable with soft 18, I'm going to start watching you. There's people that have a hard time with that, but there's the APs, it's automatic. They know what to do, no hesitation whatsoever.
They better.
Yeah, right.
but yeah, you could stare at it for a second or.
Yeah, exactly. Because It's the same way as hitting a 12 versus 2. A lot of the blackjack players, they tend to stay on those. 12 versus 3, they stand. But if someone was too quick to hit those, I'm like, this guy read some books, or whether they bought that strategy card at the gift shop, you know. But yeah, we pay attention to those.
What's the first thing that makes you want to examine a player, or is it normally a call up?
It's looking for. So what happens is, if we were to catch a card counter, right? The person in the room, not the department, the person in the room who proactively spotted a counter gets credit for that as a live observation. So if something was called in, that means the credit goes to table games. You know what I mean? That means surveillance missed it. Because how can table games spot them first before us? We take all kinds of calls, right? Of course, table games can help us. They're front line. Uh, they're always the first defense, right? So yes, we do expect those phone calls to come in, but for the most part, surveillance's job is to actively look at players on the game. A big thing that happened too in this whole generational shift is the casinos now are a lot bigger. With the larger casino, we focus on gaming. The non-gaming side is on the security side. So surveillance now, as the larger properties at least, are focused entirely on the gaming side. That means slots and table games. So we should be proactively looking at table games instead of looking at parking garages or hotel lobbies and stuff like that. We're supposed to be focused, larger properties again, on gaming. And that's why we should always have games up in front of our monitors rather than elevators.
How obvious is wonging?
Wonging, you know, in my experience, there's only a few who does that, and I could see their faces in my head. But yeah, it's pretty easy to spot.
For you? What
Yeah.
about for the average surveillance person?
Then no, because they're so quick. It's in and out. They'll wait there, back out. Because again, when we're watching a table, we're watching the table, not
Yeah.
behind the table. So if they come in on their plus count, they'll bet. And once the count goes south, then they leave. That takes about, what, 5-10 minutes the most?
Yeah.
By the time we even see it, it's already over and that person could be gone already. So for the untrained, it's harder. But for the knowledgeable surveillance person, it's easy to spot because we do have pit overviews, is what we call them. So yes, we do have a bunch of table cameras up on the wall and in front of our monitors. However, we also have that pit overview that we could see the entire pit and who's in the back standing. Yeah. I want to add in that wonging too. In the wonging side, majority of them are refusals, right? If you do have a card and you do wong, then it just gives me ammo. Basically, now I can plug in your player's card, look at your ratings, and see where you play, how long you play, and if you're a winning player. And if I could see a bunch of beatable games, which is the 3-2 blackjack games, or some of the blackjack variant, I could see that your average time in these games is too short. And then your average wager is high. And then your winnings or your losses could be high too. So that's another thing that we also look at as far as data mining. And that goes with that wonging.
Speaking of camera angles, do those cell phone privacy shield covers work?
Yes, they do. But we got so much cameras, and if we're not catching it on one camera, we'll switch to the next one. So the nice thing about that, if you just keep moving to where you don't stay in one spot and look at that cell phone in one, you know what I mean? You have to keep moving, whether you're walking this way and then turning, and then walking again and turning. Then that surveillance camera that's trying to follow you is pretty much going to be useless because they're trying to catch up with you. If you were to sit on the game and start, and it happened before, we've seen text messages, hey, I just got backed off. There's plenty of, and you know what? It's fun that when we snap photos of that and then we share it to the department or outside properties, right? Yeah, we could see that. We could see actual conversation of these teams that are operating.
Okay, I want to go back to the players card thing. Let's say that you did play rated, and you have a flag or a note on your account. The next time they run that card, what kind of notes might be on there, or is that outside your jurisdiction?
No, just the notes actually, we input the notes, or table games input the notes, or we ask table games to input the notes. But what we put in the notes, usually, if it's on the surveillance side, we put to notify surveillance if the player lands. And what that means is, all right, if this guy comes, just call us. Don't do anything, just call us because we know what to do. Because what happens is, if we were to say in the notes that this guy is a card counter, table games can actually just take action on their own. And then they'll call us after the fact. And now we got to run back the footage and then, do our work from review versus live. So we don't try to be specific on what we put. We just say, notify surveillance, whether it's AP or a cheat, notify surveillance because we will have a record of it.
Do you know if those ID scanners at the front of some places, like a lot in the Midwest, do those automatically just ping right up to surveillance, or is that separate?
I don't have experience in that. Majority of my experience is Nevada, so I can't speak for other casinos outside Nevada, but I would expect that if it's scanned, there's got to be a log where surveillance has access to. There's an audit log, right? But does it ping? Whether it's a flagged account is what you're saying? More of those pings and notifications are from player's card rather than driver's license.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right. Yeah, because some of the podiums are like, we don't keep information on this. Like once it scans it's gone, but that doesn't mean that they don't have a camera right above the screen recording the screen the whole time.
No, once they scan it, it's definitely logged.
When it's a busier shift, are there certain things that get more or less attention than if it's a slower shift?
Yeah, so swing is definitely, the busiest shift. Days, not so much because days, they don't really have a lot of games open, right? Swing is when they start to have a lot of games open, and that's when the most action is seen. So you got your sharpest surveillance crew on swing, and then graveyard deals mostly with, you see a lot of the drops. Have you noticed drops like when they pull money from the game or pull money from slot machine? But also around graveyard time is when all the carny games are open. You don't see a lot of carny games open on days. It starts to open later on the swing time. So swing and grave is basically, it's more focused as far as table game. And day shift is more on the admin side.
Interesting. Huh. So if you were to go out and play, is there a shift that you would gravitate towards?
Well, swing, you could probably get away because it's too busy anyway. If you can get away with swing and spreading in normally, if you're talking about max bet on a regular pit, yeah, you're gonna catch heat. But if you're just doing the normal, $500 on a large resort, no, that's normal. That's normal for us. You know what I mean? But once you start navigating into the higher denoms, like the yellows and the flags, the yellow is 1,000 and flags are the 5K. Yeah, we pay attention to you.
Is it less heat to play one spot versus two? Do you think?
Oh yeah.
Even if it's like instead of 2x500, it's 1x1,000. Is that still less heat than 2x500?
Oh yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's so much like that's one of the biggest tell is that 2-hand spread. You could see this player doing 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Next thing you know, boom, 2. What was that? It's not your average gambler, basically. You know.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because once those the 2 hands come out, guess what? They're high bets.
Yeah,
they're not small bets. If you see small bets on that 2 hand or 3 hands, it's just eating the cards up. Like they get these cards out. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna keep going from 1 hand to 2. But that is interesting because I know some people, SD1, he sticks with 2 the whole time, or, it's a strong argument, especially heads up, to just stick with 1 the whole time.
Yeah, and some do two off the top, like two hands off the top, and then drop to one. That's a flag too.
Huh, interesting.
You know,
I'm
yeah.
not sure why people are doing that, but do you have any advice that you would give to a casino operator about how to handle card counters?
Yeah. Oh man, if it was my casino, obviously, right? It's never going to be my casino. But if it was my casino, don't involve security. Never involve security. Back in the day, yeah, they involved security, and what happened? There's so much. It's a liability involving security. Why? Because they're not trained to handle AP. It should be between table games and surveillance only. I am very against trespassing AP, and I hope that more casinos tend to lean that way. But if you were to involve an AP, I mean security for an AP, it could lead to the AP being detained,
Yeah.
and then it could
Expensive
lead
lawsuit.
to exactly lawsuits and stuff like that. So yes, if that happens, liability is being created by security because they don't know how to handle APs. You know.
Yeah. It is amazing how many, I mean, trespass was that 10%, 5% of your back offs. But still, it does feel kind of crazy when casinos jump to that.
Yeah. Well, I noticed in the recent couple of years at least, some casinos don't even involve security at all. So it's a good thing. We're seeing this shift, and I hope it continues because the industry learns anyway from their mistakes. It just takes a while.
Enough lawsuit. Yeah, it's crazy. Even in Vegas, some of the lawsuits that have happened and things you wouldn't think a quote unquote smart Vegas casino would do, but having like security like physically beating on that one guy and like it's just so insane.
Yeah. No, it's a sad reality, right? It starts with leadership, right? So let's say the VP of table games, right? If that VP of table games doesn't know how to handle APs, guess what they're going to do? They're going to say, oh, on every back off, yeah, call security. And it's not because of the property, it's because of that one department head that doesn't know anything about AP. I mean, they might know card counting. Yeah, I know card counting. Yeah, I know how that works. But they don't know how to handle that because that's not their job. Their job is to make sure the tables are making money. That's their job. Game protection is surveillance's job, right? But what happens is game protection for surveillance kind of is in this corporate world that we tend to back off. We always say, oh, let them decide. Let them decide what they're going to do. We just relay information. They can decide. But what happens then is when we call them, they're not doing the correct, basically back off on this person. They'll involve security, and surveillance will be watching, and will be like, why is there security in there? So if you do get backed off and there's security in there, it's not because surveillance want them there. It's because the other department heads that don't know anything about AP will involve security. And that's what the training has to start. It has to start from surveillance saying to these department heads, hey, if we're doing APs, we don't involve security. If we're handling it with cheats and theft, then yes, we involve security. So the same with slots too. If there's a slots AP, we don't say, hey, slots department, there's an AP in slots. Normally, they would just call security and say, hey, trespass. It's the same way with table games. If surveillance was to say slot AP, slot management should know not to involve security, and it's between slots and surveillance, same way as table games is to surveillance. No security.
Dane 2025 running for casino
That's
president.
Right. That's right.
You have my vote.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, someone on the forum wanted to know, how well do surveillance people know basic strategy?
If you were to give me a sheet now, I'll probably fail it. Because
Wow.
we do have the luxury of having it in front of us. So there's so much casino games there, especially, the card games, so many different payouts. It's just too much. Well, back in the day, it's just normal, standard blackjack, roulette, craps, payouts here. But now you got these ultimate, the stud games and the blackjack variants. There's just so much information to keep in your head, especially with different rules. I got to adjust my basic strategy now. So the nice thing is we do have cheat sheets is what I call it. If I'm like wondering on a basic strategy move, I have the luxury of grabbing that sheet and looking at that paper versus to a floor who don't have it or a dealer who don't have it. We do have the luxury of looking whether or not you did the right move, right? So, yeah, like I said, if you were to give me a basic strategy sheet, I'd put myself at maybe 90%, you know?
When it's like a busy night and there's more than just the AP betting black, how do you choose who to focus on? Like, what if there's people betting $300-400 on 3 different tables? How do you watch everyone at the same time and make sure?
Yeah, so that's when experience kicks in, right? First, let's say you said multiple people playing blacks, right? We look at the spread first. Now it's so much easier with the system to review. I can literally take my mouse and scrub going back, and it'll take me seconds to get to the beginning of the shoe. Versus to back in the day, I'd have to take that tape out from the VCR and plug it into my VCR and rewind. That's why it was harder back in the day. But now, because of this technology, I could literally scrub the review and I could see whether or not player one has that spread. Well, if player one doesn't have that spread, $100 to $200, $100 to $300, I'm not interested. I'll go to the aggressive ones. And going back to what we were talking about, I'd scan the layout. Who's tipping? Eliminate those two. Oh, who's drinking? Eliminate those. Oh, basic strategy mistake. Eliminate those two. Because, like I said, if you were comfortable with the soft 18 and hitting the 2s the 12s, those are the ones I focus on. If someone was to stay on a soft 17, A6, right? And then you're betting purple and you stayed and you wave and stand. Oh, just because of that, I'm not going to watch you. I'm going to move on to the next player. So that's what I mean by experience kicks in. You actually just know.
It's interesting. You know, some of those things you can do as a card counter and it's not going to hurt you. What you can't do is, we'll say tipping and also maybe standing a soft 17. Someone might listen to this and say, oh, well, then I'll just do that. But they don't know when you're watching and not watching. And those are two incredibly expensive mistakes to make.
Mm-hmm.
Tipping, you know, like it's one thing if you're making $200 an hour to tip $10 an hour, $20 an hour. It's another thing to be generating $50 an hour and tipping $100 an hour away. You know, those bets, you don't know when surveillance is watching or not.
No,
and the same with the staying on a soft 17. You say, oh, I'm going to throw them off by doing this once. Well, if you do that every time, all of a sudden your edge is gone. But if you do it once, they don't know if surveillance is watching or not.
Well, are you making those camouflage moves on a high bet or a low bet? See what I mean?
Yeah.
And not just that. If you were to do these camouflage moves, and then, you know, it's a higher end property, you know they're going to run that survey. The nice thing about the survey is it's computer. The computer does not know what you're doing, what's going on in the game and stuff like that. But it just literally just takes the bet amount and then the count, and then, you know, it does its whole math thing, right? So if you were to make mistakes on that survey, it might give you a negative survey, meaning you're not counting, because the mistakes you're doing, they take that into account, the basic errors that you're doing, whether you're splitting 20s on a, so basically splitting 20s, right? Well, the survey will not see whether that move was on a minimum bet or a high bet, right? Or if you stand on a 12 with a minimum bet versus a 2, well, that's an error. The survey will say, hey, this guy is a bad player, you know what I mean? And that edge might show, yeah, you might be counting and moving with the count, right? And they'll say, strong evidence of card counter. However, again, the keyword is casino disadvantage. So if you don't get that casino disadvantage, you will not get backed off. But remember, we're only doing 100 rounds. So it doesn't mean that you're not a winning player. It just means that at the time, at that shoe, you didn't get that, whatever.
Yeah, I feel like to try to beat that, there's so many assumptions you'd have to make about when you're being evaluated and all that, as opposed to, I've had an approach to Vegas for a dozen years, and you're validating it, you know, it's hit and run and back count and bomb it and then move on. And, you know.
So in today's surveillance world with the card counters, right? We have this thing called auto back off, meaning we're not even going to run a survey on you. Someone like you or you come in.
Wow.
Oh, we're not going to run a survey on you guys. Come on, we're not going to do that. So as soon as we spot you, literally, we're not going to do a survey on you. We're just going to, hey, these guys are here. We should.
I mean, someone like me, a card counter, that approach, or if my disguise is so good you don't realize it's me. Maybe you would, but
well-known card counters, right?
But some other surveillance guy that doesn't know.
Yeah. So here's the thing: if you were a new player, let's say a new player who wants to come in on a higher end property, and then you put frontline money, right? You deposit 100K. You have no history with the place. Then you play. Well, as soon as you land, it's not an automatic survey. They will run your survey, maybe later on, maybe on the spot, but survey is always on review. It's not live. So they will be behind you as you're playing, right? As a new player, just think about it. If you can throw off the first 1-2 shoe, because when they do the survey, they got to start from the beginning. So if you just throw off the first shoe, as long as you're not costing yourself a lot of money, you do these wild errors on small bets and stuff like that. Maybe move a couple of units on the negative. The first shoe, the second shoe, they will be included in your survey. So if they run your survey and says, hey, this guy is not counting because those shoes are there, whether it's 3 shoes in the beginning, we're done with you. That means you're negative. We're not going to watch you anymore because we have this paper that we have to send to department heads of table games, right? This is how he plays. And then you're staying there for a couple of days, right? Your second day, your third day, you might not catch heat because we already have that first survey.
Man, I sure wish there was some kind of survey subscriber list available somewhere.
Just assume any medium-sized to big-sized, large-sized resorts will have it. In Vegas, at least, yeah. Yeah, the smaller properties, I don't see it.
This has been really awesome, and I feel like it's very rare that I feel like I'm learning in a podcast interview. I mean, they're always fun, but rarely am I like, oh, wow, this is really good stuff. But what I want to ask you before we wrap up is if there's any interesting things that you've observed, cheating scandals or anything like that you're able to share. I know you can't give details, but is there anything you could share?
Well, I'll tell you about the Baccarat camera scam. You guys heard about that?
No.
So what happens is there's this Asian team that was traveling the world. So there you go.
Oh,
they were traveling the world.
The zero shuffle?
No. This is more of the they'll take that cut card and then they'll run that cut card along the edge of the decks. And after doing that, they have a camera up in their sleeve. Have you guys heard about that?
I have heard about this. Yeah, tell us.
Yeah, so it records the sequence of cards, right? That recording goes outside. Next thing you know, you have a shoe that, the players can bet on because they know the outcome.
Yeah.
What the outcome's going to be. And they were successful at that. They were very successful. That was organized, well bankrolled, cheating team, but they did some damage, man.
I'm assuming they're in prison now.
Yes, I think so. But in Asia, because I think they got caught in Asia. When Vegas found out about it, they were gone.
Oh, wow.
The nice thing about that is I saw this movie back in the 90s. It was an Asian movie called God of Gamblers. So this Asian movie, you had this actor, right? Basically, he's like a big god of gambler, right? And what he did, again, this is back in the 90s, 93, 96, right? In the movie, the guy was running that cut card along the side of the deck. And what I just told you, this cheating team just did this maybe 10, 15 years ago, right?
Wow.
But that movie has been out. So guess what? They got the idea from that movie. Yeah, so sometimes we got to pay attention to movies too, at least surveillance that's, That's cheating. Then you got your employees stealing. They do it, especially around Christmas time, like now, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the internal theft happened during Christmas too. And then you got dealers dumping the game. They're basically colluding with the players to just dump the game. And they'll pay, and next thing you know.
Like mispay?
Mispay, Yeah, push a loser, pay a loser, stuff like that. Overpay. But yeah, it happens. In the AP world, there's some good stuff happening right now. In the AP world. The fun thing is I did touch about that subject briefly in my second book, but I didn't really explain it that much. And I could still write another book to put stuff out there. But maybe that's for another time. But if you've read my first book, my second one, obviously, you'll see a lot more card counting based and whole card based in blackjack games. I haven't even touched on the Carney game. And because I don't have a layout to like do samples on, maybe I'll just make my own layout, and then I'll touch on that subject. But for the most part, the AP world of what's happening now, what we're seeing in the surveillance side, it's a lot more, how do you say it, more the upper echelons, or like big money being wagered or whatever. Or the approach is so much different than card counting. You know what I mean? It's just, if you see it happening in person, that's what I mean by exposure versus years of experience. It's one thing that you're 20 years in surveillance, however, you still have to have that exposure of actually seeing how whole card is being done by players on the game at the time, and whether it's shuffle tracking or loss rebate play and all that stuff. So it's definitely different now.
I wanted to ask you, what is your opinion on the Phil Ivey and Kelly Stunn ruling
in UK?
Yeah.
Nah, I like the ruling in the US. I can't really speak about the laws in UK, but no, they should. Man, that's AP, man. That's AP. Edge sorting is AP.
we would agree.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. You guys feel the same way?
Well,
yeah.
I'm just wondering from a surveillance perspective, why did it take them so long to figure it out?
Because a lot of these high action players, they can negotiate terms because they have that money. What the casino want, they just want to bring these people in. So they'll just say yes to everything they want, right? So what happens is surveillance, our hands are tied with these type of players. When we're seeing something that's out of the normal procedures, yes, we do question it. However, when we do question it, the department heads would say, yeah, no, we allowed that. So what can we do? Nothing. We can't do anything. And next thing you know, they beat us for $1 million. Now we got to figure it out. Why? Well, why? Look.
Told you 4 weeks ago.
Awesome. Well, people should definitely check out The Art of Casino Surveillance and be armed. But thank you so much for sharing so much wisdom with us.
Yeah.
Where can they buy the book?
It is available in Amazon, like yours, right? That's all it is. It's Amazon.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us, and maybe we'll do this again in 10 years.
Yeah. Right. No, when's the last time we saw each other?
Oh, man. It probably has been 10 years.
2013, maybe?
Yeah.
That was in one of your boot camps, too, maybe.
Yeah, over 10 years ago. Well, good to see you. It's good to hear what you've been up to and how things have changed.
Yeah. No, it's good to see you guys. Again, thanks for having me. Yeah, see you out there, huh?
Yeah.
You just might. I hope you all enjoyed that. If you want to learn more about blackjack and advantage play, go to blackjackapprenticeship.com.